Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1080 just came out and I just had a realization. This is just what One Piece is going to be from here on out. It's going to be every few chapters, we get some new top tier that we've been waiting to see fight for God knows how many decades. We're going to get to see them show off and flex like one or two things in a chapter. We're all going to go crazy. We're going to talk about it for the next several chapters until it's time for the next top tier to show up and then do their thing. And this cycle is just going to keep going and going until we actually finally get to see them fight each other. And so next week we got Shanks a week ago. We got Garp today. Next we probably get Dragon or Mihawk, and then probably we hit some of the old familiar beats. We finally get to see Akainu do a bit more. Maybe we get to see more of his hockey next time. Probably Blackbeard get to see him go all out. Maybe against Garp for all we know. This is just gonna be what it's like. And then Im is probably the big one that Oda's really gonna save till the very end. But the chapter that he finally goes all out, that's gonna be mind-blowing as well. This is just it. This is just One Piece. It's just gonna be non-stop, just crazy, hyped up character finally doing something after so long of waiting. We all go nuts, and then we just wait like good kids for the next time, and then it's the next character's turn, and it keeps on rolling like that, right? I can't say I'm complaining. This is just what we all want the final saga to be. On stream, people were talking about, hey, you know who could show up here? Cross Guild, because they're talking about bounties and stuff like that. Why wouldn't Cross Guild just show up and try and snag some of these crazy marine bounties? I mean, you got Garp and all of his subordinates, and obviously Kobe's already there. The island is suspiciously barren in terms of, you know, Blackbeard's not there, Awakiji's not there, Shiryu's the biggest heavy hitter. Why wouldn't Cross Guild just swoop in and try and see if they can pick up some cash, you know? Some of these, well, not cash, but some of the marines that they've been putting out, you know, big numbers for. So, look, anything can happen at this point. I've been saying that, but seriously, this is just what all of our hopes were for the final saga actually playing out in real time in front of us. So I could not be any happier with the recent One Piece chapters. Let me talk briefly about this one. Why briefly? Let me talk about this one. I don't know why I said briefly. Look, let's talk briefly about the Blackbeard Pirates, right? I'm going to talk about the Blackbeard Pirates, then Garp's squad, and then the real meat, right? The nitty-gritty stuff, the possibilities that come out of this chapter and the direction that things seem to be going. So, the Blackbeard Pirates, we did get some insight into their abilities. This is something I talked about on stream, but in terms of their abilities, it may not seem like it, but their abilities are a touch more interesting than what we've already gotten for past Yonko Crew's. Because if you go back one arc, right, in Wano, Kaido's crew's abilities, they're all pretty by the numbers, fairly straightforward, right? One's a mammoth, one's a saber-toothed tiger. You know, these are fairly basic abilities. You know, Blackbeard's got Pizarro, who has an entire island fruit, which might just be a souped-up version of Pika's fruit, but, you know, it's One Piece at the end of the day. The tippy top fruits, like lightning, magma, stuff like that, that's going to be saved for the admirals, right? So I think something like an island fruit is still really impressive for one of the subordinates of Blackbeard, who likely isn't even one of Blackbeard's, you know, top 3 members or anything like that, right? I don't know exactly who Pizarro's matchup is going to be. I'll speculate on that a little bit in a second. Vasco Shot, he has the Liquor Fruit, which I believe, my guess would be that it's going to be more so used for its fire capabilities, its fire starting capabilities. And then obviously we've got San Juan Wolf with the Giant Fruit. So sure, some of the abilities are a bit by the numbers, but look, the Giant Fruit, it's still a very impressive fruit, right? He becomes basically the biggest character, most likely the biggest character that we've seen in the story. Burgess having the Strength Fruit, Van Augur being able to teleport. These all make for fruits that may be a little bit on the simpler side in some ways, right? But at the same time, they're still stronger fruits than what we've seen from, you know, the Beast Pirates or even the Big Mom Pirates. The Big Mom Pirates, like, her top commanders, their abilities were mochi and biscuits and things of that nature the further you go down the list. So the Blackbeard Pirates, I think their fruits are fitting for, at the end of the day, the Straw Hat matchups that they're going to have, right? Because that's what is going to come down to the most, right? Van Augur's got a teleport fruit that makes a great sniping opponent for Usopp, who's going to have to catch a teleporting opponent. I think across the board, you can say Katarina Devon, her ability to shapeshift, that makes her a really good hypothetical matchup for Robin, because a lot of Robin's ability is about restraining, so it's difficult to restrain a character that can quickly change their shape. Along those lines, I think we can go down the list and say that there's some pretty good matchups from the Blackbeard Pirates versus the Straw Hat Pirates. If I had to spitball right now, I would say Vasco Shot having fire-based abilities might make him a good matchup for Brook. Frankie versus Pizarro could be a good matchup just because Frankie, I imagine, will be fighting with a fairly large, gigantic mech by the end of the story, and Pizarro obviously manipulate a giant island, which would make for a good matchup. Or alternatively, maybe Frankie versus San Juan Wolf, considering, you know, Frankie He makes mechs, he makes battleships, he makes ships, etc. San Juan Wolf himself is the size of a battleship. That could be an interesting matchup, but across the board, you guys get what I'm saying. I think that obviously Doc Q and Chopper, the abilities, we can kind of throw around some matchups that make a lot of sense, and at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter the most with the Blackbeard Pirates. Not to forget that even without their abilities, these guys are all level 6 prisoners from Impel Down, right? Or at least the new recruits are. And then Shiryu was the warden, so their base fighting ability is extremely, extremely high as is. That's important to remember. I think that I saw some people a little underwhelmed by their abilities, but this is what we would expect from endgame Straw Hat opponents at the very least, right? Beyond that, Garp's crew, this might break you guys' heart to hear this, but I am not going to talk about Garp's crew here, right? I call them his crew because that's essentially what they are. They're his makeshift crew. Look, I need to see them exist and do things for more than one chapter before I'm convinced that these guys are anything more than just fun, quirky characters with some little abilities that Oda just threw in. I'm not convinced yet that these guys are going to be anything more significant than, say, the Oniwa Banshu, right? So I'm not getting fooled again. Alright, let's wait and see if we have any reason to care. Cool, one of them is Suru's granddaughter. That's not enough for me yet. To me, that's just like a nice little reference or throwback to a character we already know, okay? I'm not talking about these guys, right? I'm not talking about them, their designs, their abilities. As far as I can tell at the moment, we have no reason yet. I've just been fooled by this too many times so far, okay? There have been too many characters just thrown in at points that quickly turn out to be unimportant. I'm not giving these guys the time of day just yet. Let's talk about Garp and the way things might be headed for Garp. So first of all, Garp, I think, over-delivered in terms of what anybody, period, expected of him, right? Anybody expected of him in terms of what he could do with a serious punch thrown by him at this age, at this point in the story. Obviously, we didn't get to see him actually fight anybody the way Shanks did against Kid, so I'm not trying to even compare the two feats. They're just drastically different, right? Shanks actually fought somebody. What I'm saying is that the last time we saw Garp throw a serious punch was against Marco at Marineford. And something that many people forget is that out of all the top tiers that Marco has fought and taken hits from, right? Kizaru, Akainu, Big Mom, Kaido, all of them have failed to actually injure Marco except for Garp at Marineford. Garp threw one punch at Marineford, it was against Marco, and it actually bruised him and injured him. That suggested right off the bat that Garp's hockey was something else. What we didn't realize, I think none of us imagined that he could do a punch like this that had this level of just area of effect at a distance, and that's the big thing. I've seen people comparing like, well, this other punch that this character threw or that character threw is also really, really impressive. The key word is distance. The distance between Garp's fist and the ground is God knows how many meters. He's 56, I don't know how to scale that. He's so far above the town that it's just an unheard of feat. We just have nothing even to compare it to because no character has done something like this with just their fist. Conqueror's Haki, we know, allows you to essentially extend your Haki beyond your body. That's why the big deal is, okay, these characters, they're not touching when they're clashing, right? That was Oden's comment when Whitebeard and Roger clashed. That was, I believe, Law's comment when he saw Luffy and Kaido clashing, right? That's the real key to seeing Conqueror's Haki, advanced Conqueror's Haki in use. When you're able to extend your Haki so far out of your body that it gives the impression, I mean, it literally is making contact without even physically touching the opponent, right? We saw that with Big Mom in page 1. So this depiction of Conqueror's Haki, it basically breaks all the rules, or Advanced Conqueror's Haki breaks all the rules and all the standards we had previously of what, an impressive Conqueror's Haki attack really looked like. Because the distance between Garp's fist and the earth, and the level of the scale of the impact that it's having, is just so exponentially greater than literally anything we've seen, Conqueror's Haki-wise, right? The closest you get to this sort of thing is when two advanced Conqueror's Haki users clash, and then they split the sky. That's obviously really impressive. It's hard to even gauge how do you compare these two things. This is just a single punch, right? But looking at just the effects of a single punch, it's impossible to really scale or compare this because this is a Garp exclusive. That's what I find really, really cool about this at the end of the day, is that the way that Oda chose to impress us with what Garp can do is by showcasing us something that we've never seen before. And I think that Oda really has a knack for that when he hypes up certain top tier characters. He has them often do something that just blows our mind in a way that we haven't really thought about before. So with Garp doing this, it feels unique to him in that his legacy is this legendary hero. He fights only with his fists. His name is Garp the Fist. right? We've at this point gotten used to characters doing crazy things with their Conqueror's Haki punches, right? You know, we've seen characters clash, split the sky. We've seen Luffy punch Kaido a bunch of times without making contact. We've seen Big Mom do it. We've gotten used to that. So when you have Garp the Fist finally show out what he can do to do something that is just visually so drastically different and so much more visually impressive than what any other character has done, to the point that we can't even believe a character is capable of doing this with just their bare fists from that distance, that's a phenomenal way of just stamping in the reader's head, like, yes, old Garp is insane. He would be scary for any character in One Piece to go up against right now at his age, and in his prime, absolutely I would believe that he is right up there with Prime Roger and Prime Whitebeard and Prime Rocks, right? All of this is not to say that I'm claiming that, you know, Garp right now is one of the 4 or 5 strongest characters in the world or anything. We get it. Garp himself has said from the get-go, way back pre-time skip, that, hey, my power is declining, I'm nowhere near as strong as I used to be. I'm not going to go ahead and put him up there, and he very well could be about to lose to Blackbeard. So with that in mind, I'm going to temper my expectations a little bit about what we're going to see, but I would say the uniqueness and the impact and the impression that Oda gave with this sort of introduction to Garp's true fighting capabilities is something that is always going to be very iconic and memorable, and that's all you can really ask for. So, phenomenal chapter, phenomenal showcase for Garp in terms of where things could be headed for him. So, this brings me to Blackbeard, and the very interesting thing that Blackbeard brought up this chapter, which is that he actually wants to be made a king, an official king under the world government. A la Doflamingo in a sense, but this is even more unheard of because Doflamingo was at least a Shichibukai, so he was legalized as a pirate. This makes no sense in that Blackbeard's not signing up to be a Shichibukai. The Shichibukai don't even exist. Blackbeard is a Yonko. He's a pirate in open rebellion, essentially. By being a pirate, you're in conflict with, you're in rebellion against the world government. You're saying, I'm independent from you, right? I'm my own thing. I'm a warlord. I do my own thing, right? Not warlord in the Shichibukai sense. I mean warlord in the broad sense, in that, like, I have my territory, you don't mess with my territory, I'm basically standing against you, right? That doesn't really make sense with being made an official king under the world government unless Blackbeard is trying to cede his pirate status or something like that. The long and short of it is, I think we can all understand that this is not a genuine wish of Blackbeard's to be a king under the world government. What it seems more like is what he's already done before, which is he tried to become a Shichibukai. Why? So that he could get access to Impel Down. Get access to Impel Down, he could free a lot of the prisoners, build himself a really good crew, right? That was the true reason he wanted to become a Shichibukai. So he's already done this sort of bargaining game with the world government before. Hey, I'll give you guys Ace or Luffy or a pirate with a big name. I'll give you guys something like that. You make me Shichibukai. I got what I want. I'm gonna go in, get access to what I wanted to get access to, and get out. It seems very similar. He dangles a bargaining chip in front of them. He's trying to do it with Koby. He wants to get access to something that probably only a king could get. Perhaps he wants access to Marie-Joie or something like that. And what that would be is hard to speculate on, but perhaps it's the great treasure of Marie-Joie. We don't know. I would point out that Lafitte seems to have no trouble getting in and out of Marie-Joie, so I feel like Blackbeard could just send Lafitte, but hey, we don't know his full game here, right? So we're speculating, we're spitballing. And that brings us back to Garp again, because the thing that I thought of basically coming off the stream was that Garp is not a confirmed member of SWORD, unlike everybody else that we've been seeing lately. He's not a confirmed member of SWORD, which means that maybe, he probably is a member of SWORD, but let's say he's not a member of SWORD. One, this raid on a Yonko is basically unsanctioned completely, right? But two, if he's not a member of SWORD, and he's significantly more valuable than Koby, maybe Garp getting captured here could be the bargaining chip that Blackbeard uses to get his king status, because, you know, Koby is a hero of the Marines, but Garp is the hero of the Marines. That is an infinitely more valuable bargaining chip. That is probably something that could get Blackbeard, you know, king status, if that's really what he's looking for. So I feel like that's a direction that the story might be headed. The last point that we do have to touch on is obviously SWORD. I like that we got clarification on what it is. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me why the world government even allows this sort of part of their organization to exist in the first place. Basically, Marines that don't have to act like Marines and can do whatever they want, and then the world government can offer it. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But at the same time, I suppose you could say it's kind of falling under maybe 2 steps removed from Shichibukai, I suppose, where it's not like the world government is really I don't really get why the world government allows this to exist, considering they rule with they run their ship with they run a really tight ship, right? The world government is very tight. They don't tolerate much insubordination or not following orders whatsoever. So it's just odd that this faction of them can just kind of do what they like, and the worst that happens to them is that they get fired. I think that at the end of the day, Sword existing is really good for One Piece and provides a route for reform for the Marines over time. And I'm happy that, again, that we got an explanation. Just maybe some more clarification over time would be nice. But at the end of the day, I just don't think that that's important. I think we get why Sword is in the story, and that's what matters more. So, all in all, phenomenal chapter. I think we're just going to get more chapters like that pretty frequently going forward. And the way that it cut out at the end does leave me hopeful that we actually get to continue where we picked off, or where we left off from next chapter. It feels as though this is something that could continue. The battle's already starting. It feels as though it could segue right into what happens in 1081. And I do believe that either Blackbeard or Aokiji is set to come back soon, because I don't think that even Shiryu and those other, those other Titanic captains can handle Garp and his squad right now. But maybe Shiryu surprises me. We'll see. So that's all for this video, and I'll talk to you all later.